And so one of our climate legislative priorities is Senate Bill 267. This is sponsored by Senator Chris Pearson. And what it does is it sets out a 100% renewable energy standard with at least 20% local renewables by 2030. So this means that not only will every utility in the state will need to provide renewable electricity to all Vermonters, but at least 20% of that renewable electricity will come from local sources of generation. And that helps to address those many problems and issues that we have with our current system. Right now, this legislation is in the Senate Finance Committee, and we expect them to take a vote on that as soon as they come back. Currently, the legislature is in a week break, and they'll be back Tuesday of next week. So when you see them at town meeting day, you can ask them, how are they supporting Senate Bill 267? Do they expect to vote on making sure that at least 20% of our electricity comes from local renewables? So this bill is going to be up for a vote in the Senate next week. Week after next. And we're going to be working to improve this legislation as it moves through the process. It's really important that our renewable energy standard have integrity and transparency. We should not be subsidizing nuclear energy, and fossil fuels should not also not be subsidized. So these issues are going to be discussed on the bill and are currently being discussed. We could also lower our energy costs if we had more resilient and dispatchable renewables. That means energy storage and using energy when we need it and when it costs the least amount of money. And so there are a variety of other issues that we're going to be working on as this legislation progresses. And why are we working on this? Again, because local renewable electricity creates climate resilient communities and greater self-reliance. It increases energy choices for Vermonters and improves access to innovative advanced energy technologies for all Vermonters. We also know that local renewables creates jobs for Vermonters and keeps money in our state. When we have a fully transformed clean energy economy, there's tremendous opportunity for entrepreneurship, good paying jobs, and social justice. Unfortunately, right now, billions of dollars are spent on imported energy. Between $2.5 and $3 billion is what we spend in Vermont on energy every single year. Dirty fossil fuels, they go to foreign and other out-of-state sources. So by keeping more of that money local, we'll put Vermonters to work installing projects and we'll grow our economy. We know that we are all working hard to reduce fossil fuels from heating and from transportation using a variety of great technologies like heat pumps, geothermal, advanced wood heating. And as we electrify our heating and transportation, renewable electricity is the backbone. So if someone gets an electric vehicle or has a heat pump installed in their house, but it's not powered with 100% renewable electricity, we're not doing much for the climate. And so that's really one other reason why we need this legislation. We also have a situation where current law is inadequate, unintentionally slowing resilient renewable energy deployment and local economic opportunity. I already mentioned that the Public Utility Commission's implementation of the current renewable energy standard limits local in-state renewable generation to just 10% of the power Vermont needs. If we know that we can generate 50% of the power we need, but our laws and our regulators are only allowing us to generate 10%, we've got to fix that. So how can you help with this bill? So if you visit REV's website, It'll also link you right on the homepage to this site where you can send a postcard to the governor and all of your elected officials. It's rev.ilovemy.solar. You can also get it off REV's main website. There's a whole website about the renewable energy standard with other questions and answers and fact sheets.
Can you talk a bit about the opposition's perspective?
So there are concerns that we've heard about, can the electric grid handle so much local renewables? There is a great resource called the Vermont Solar Pathways Report, which we also have detailed on our website. The U.S. Department of Energy funded a study using utility data and using Department of Public Service local Vermont data. And it found that Vermont's electricity grid today can handle 20% solar. And if we generated 20% of our electricity with solar and with local renewables, Vermont would see $8 billion in net benefits. For folks that don't know, net benefits equals benefits minus the cost. And in this study, those benefits didn't even include the value for reducing carbon pollution and other environmental benefits. So I think we hear a lot of questions related to the concerns about cost and affordability and impact, but we've done a lot of analysis and we know that both in the short term and in the long term, when we invest in local renewables, overall those costs go down because we're lowering those transmission costs from bringing the power in from far away. And we also are creating greater resilience. So I encourage folks to check out that Solar Pathways report as a resource on our website. But there's quite a few other bills, so why don't we move on and talk about some other legislation that's pending. So there's also legislation that has been sponsored in the House by Representative Sibilia that the governor included in his budget to catalyze renewable energy storage and grid optimization. So this would really help to make sure that we are planning for local renewables and optimizing the grid that we have and lower the costs. So we have several local businesses that develop energy storage systems. Dynapower in South Burlington, Northern Reliability in Waterbury, Northern Power Systems in Barrytown, and there are many, many others. You can find them all on our website. We even have Dynamic Organics down in Putney that's doing ice storage, and Packetize Energy out of Burlington. And so there's legislation that would encourage new companies to come and work on this and existing with R&D tax credits, also making sure that for community scale projects and utility projects, the property tax structure is treated just like for storage, and eliminating corporate income tax for these grid optimization companies. There's also legislation, this is the bill number that's wrong. You're correct. Thank you for recognizing that typo. I'll fix that in our follow-up. Senator Bray is sponsoring legislation that modernizes the electric efficiency utilities. This was a committee bill that came out of the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee. This bill has passed the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee. It's sitting in the Senate Finance Committee, and it allows for our electric efficiency utilities, which are Efficiency Vermont and Burlington Electric Department, to do a pilot program for 3 years. So up to $2 million a year could be spent by those energy efficiency utilities to prioritize reducing greenhouse gases from heating and or transportation solutions. And so working in collaboration with our electricity utilities like Green Mountain Power, Washington Electric Co-op, to help Vermonters further reduce their energy costs. Perhaps if you've already done all the efficiency work you can on your home or business, the next step really is to make sure you're using renewable heating solutions and renewable transportation like electric vehicles or even electric forklifts in your shop. So that legislation is on its way. It should be voted on in the Senate, also after town meeting break. Over on the House side, the House Energy and Technology Committee, which is chaired by Representative Tim Briglin, and the full House have passed the Global Warming Solutions Act. That's House Bill 688. And the Global Warming Solutions Act essentially codifies Vermont's renewable energy commitments and requires that the state create a plan and have a council. So we have measurable plans that aren't all the way out to 2050, but are more closer. So we have, some very respectable climate pollution reduction goals. Unfortunately, we haven't been meeting them. And we really need our state agencies and the government to be held accountable and to have concrete plans on how we are going to meet our commitments. And so this legislation has fully passed the House. If you see your representative at the 105 members voted for this bill, which is a veto-proof vote in the House, if you see your representatives, you can most likely say thank you, or you can ask questions about why not. And if you see your senators, you can say, hey, I look forward to you voting for the Renewable Energy Standard legislation when it's on the floor soon, but also how are you feeling about Global Warming Solutions Act? And I see in the chat that Bob has shared some resources that will help you get a lot more information about the Global Warming Solutions Act. So last topic before we get to further questions and resources is transportation and electric vehicles. So the governor has proposed $3 million in the budget to support electric vehicle consumer incentives. So that's a point of sale reduction from the cost of an electric vehicle, and also to expand electric vehicle charging stations all across the state. So we're asking folks to support the governor's budget for grid optimization and for electric vehicles. We do want the transportation and the budget committees to clarify that that electric vehicle charging be technology agnostic. We need to make sure that we are getting the best bang for the buck as we invest in electric vehicle charging around the state. And so we want to make sure that we're getting the best price, but also not buying technology that's going to be outdated in a few years. So we're working with the transportation committees and the appropriations committee on this. But this is one thing where we can thank the governor for including this in his budget package. We also are asking for folks to dedicate the federal Volkswagen settlement funds to electrification and accelerate the use of those funds. So the federal settlement, if folks aren't familiar, can be used for EV charging stations, but it can also and only be used for heavy duty vehicles. Think school buses, commuter buses like Green Mountain Transit, garbage trucks, forklifts, anything that's a heavy duty vehicle and anything that's a fleet vehicle that's heavy duty can be used. And so there's no reason that we should be waiting to use these funds, as these vehicles are available now on the market. And so we really want to accelerate use of those funds so we can get these benefits in Vermont. The Transportation and Climate Initiative is another very big climate progress effort that is being led in the Senate by the pro tem Tim Ash, and being supported by the House in the transportation committees. The Transportation and Climate Initiative would be a regional effort by other states in New England and down the East Coast to cap pollution from transportation, and it sets a price. And so polluters, when they sell oil or gas wholesale, will be, if they generate more pollution, they'll be able to cap the price. That'll be capped by the regional agreement in every state, and a price will be set on the carbon pollution. And with those funds, we'll be able to invest funds into more electric transportation, renewable public transit, walking and biking, and other clean transportation choices. This is a regional effort, so Massachusetts is already moving forward. New York is already moving forward to support this, as is even all the way down to Maryland. There's a lot of information that is available on our website about TCI, and we very much would encourage folks to learn more about TCI and engage with their legislators about it. And finally, on the electric vehicle front, I think we know that we're seeing tremendous innovation and changes in the way people purchase their vehicles. I'm really excited that Rivian is coming out in the next 2 years with an electric truck. Tesla also is another company that does not sell through a local dealer. And so we want to make sure that as these new technologies are available, that everyone can access them here in Vermont, so that you can purchase directly from the manufacturer, and also so that you're protected as a consumer with warranties and repair services that you need. So Senator Perchlik has legislation, Senate Bill 241, that we expect to progress in the Senate Transportation Committee. So what I want to do is also open it up to further questions and remind folks about the actions that they can take.
So there are a couple of questions here. I'm concerned that the buzz isn't great on this bill. Can you talk about the enthusiasm of the bill's sponsors and other legislators?
So I think that's referring to the Global Warming Solutions Act.
H688, yep.
Yeah, so it was quite incredible that 105 members, that's beyond a majority.
And I think
House.
It's beyond hype.
Yes,
So
voted for the bill.
Yeah.
And it really, that legislation, I think the Senate will be amending it. There are a lot of questions and a lot of misinformation about the Global Warming Solutions Act. At the core, what that bill does is say, we have these goals, they're in statute, and we're committed to meet them. And so we need a plan, and we need short-term measurable targets, and we expect the state to meet its commitments.
Thanks, Russ. I see that Russ had asked that question, and he was actually
renewable energy legislation.
Yeah.
So the great thing about the renewable energy standard legislation is that in the Senate, it's actually sponsored by every all but one member of the Senate Finance Committee, and it is also being sponsored by the pro tem, which is the head of the Senate, Tim Ash. One of the challenges that this legislation is facing, as I talked a little bit about questions related to cost, is that the section of the bill that requires local renewables. That is, in my opinion, the most important component of the bill, because if we don't have a system that is relying on more local renewables, we won't have a resilient system. We won't have a system that's cost effective in the long term. And we'll have a system that maybe relies exclusively on fossil fuels that are scrubbed clean with RECs that no other state in New England considers renewable. So what's incredible, what we see happening in other states across the country, from Washington State to Hawaii, California, New York, Maine, and now as recently as last week, Virginia. Virginia is not necessarily known to be a progressive on climate and energy issues, but all of those states that I mentioned have made commitments to 100% clean electricity, and even our neighbor in Maine. So Vermont's fallen behind, and as I said, if we want to make progress on the climate, if we want to make progress in creating more resilient communities, we need to have resilient local renewables. So I really strongly encourage everyone to get in touch with your legislators, fill out one of these postcards that you can personalize on our website. Also on that website, you can sign on to legislation, sign on to a letter. If you are a local business owner or manage a business, there's a business sign-on letter to support 100% renewables and local renewables. So we encourage as many folks as possible to fill out those postcards. We'll get them delivered to your legislators. Talk to your legislators about this bill. We also have a Q&A on our website. And so let's see if we have any other questions before Bob shares some additional resources.
Actually, there is one more question. Seems to be a lot of pushback on very expensive electric buses, and I'm not sure that's a good hill to die on. A belching diesel bus getting only 6 miles to the gallon, but carrying 40 passengers might be far better than 40 Prius drivers clogging up the roads and parking. Buses might be a good step too. Any feedback on?
I completely agree. So we need more transportation choices, and if they are renewable, all the better. We're really excited that Burlington Electric Department and Green Mountain Transit now have 2 electric buses in Burlington. The more transportation choices that folks have, the lower our climate impact, and really we actually save on our energy costs. So it's we do want to encourage that funding for more public transportation, more transportation choices, and when those choices are available, for them to be renewable. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob. Bob's going to share some resources that are available to you. Bob has been doing this work to help the Climate Solutions Caucus that's chaired by Senator Chris Pearson and Representative Sarah Copeland-Hanzas. He has a tremendous amount of resources where he's taking videos every week with them to get updates on legislation, the 4 key bills that we talked about.
Right.
The Renewable Energy Standard Update, Transportation Climate Initiative, the Global Warming Solutions Act, and modernizing our electric efficiency utilities.
Right. So you'll see on the right-hand column of that page, bobthegreenguy.com/climate-solutions. And this is changing all the time because I'm always pulling information in here. But for example, the Global Warming Solutions Act, if you want to see a video presentation of it, you can go to that page and watch the video presentation of the Global Warming Solutions Act. I followed Sarah Copeland-Hanzas and Chris Pearson around Vermont, and I recorded quite a few of the presentations that they did, and a number of those are available on the site so that you can see how they did their presentation, and it might help you understand better what the caucus is up to for climate issues in the State House. I also recorded the questions and answers from the audience. And to be honest with you, I found this section of their presentations around the state to be the most interesting, because there are a lot of passionate people out there. Very little negative pushback on the presentations that were done. And if anything, you'll notice that a lot of the questions revolve around, are we doing enough fast enough? Are we being bold enough? Are we taking the action that we need to really be taking? So if you want to know how your representatives were answering these questions, you can just click on any one of these questions. It might be helpful for you to pick out 5 or 10 of these questions to listen to and figure out the best way that you can either answer that question or use that question to ask your representative either at town meeting or over coffee at a coffee shop near you. We have been doing a weekly video blog or a vlog where Chris and Sarah do a presentation about 10 to 20 minutes long with a quick overview of what's going on in the State House around those key issues, their banner bills. It's been fun to produce, but it's also fun to get the feedback from folks that they really like being able to get that information so quickly and easily. Now, you'll notice that there's a video option here, and then if you scroll down, you can also just listen to it on your phone while you're driving home. So we tried to make it as easy as we can for you to get the information you need to keep up to speed on what's going on. Things are moving pretty fast out there. I don't know, let's check and see if there are any other questions.
We've got some questions about electric vehicles, and I've shared some responses into the chat there. Interesting on how's Rev working with auto dealers, and how are auto dealers interested, or are they interested in providing electric vehicles? So it's interesting. Renewable Energy Vermont has several members who are local auto dealers and or are electric vehicle manufacturers. I'll speak specifically to Lamoille Valley Ford and Twin State Ford, Nissan, and Tesla. So all of those folks are Rev members, and we also do work with dealers, and our utility members like Burlington Electric Department are working with dealers to make sure that when someone does go into the showroom, they can get just as much information, or perhaps even more, about electric vehicles from the salesperson at the dealership than a traditional vehicle. So there are some dealers around the state who actually have gone through the effort of training all their salespeople and making significant investments in electric vehicle equipment. And so I'd point you to those. On our website, you can see who is ahead of the curve in terms of offering electric vehicle services. And so what we are hoping for is, as part of the governor's budget, I did mention again that the funding will be included that offers incentives to salespeople at dealerships, so that will encourage them to sell more electric vehicles. And so the governor's budget package around electric vehicles has 3 components. First, it provides a point of sale to you, all the customers, potential buyers of electric vehicles, to lower the cost of the vehicle. 2, it makes investments in electric vehicle charging. And then 3, it includes some funding for education to the public about electric vehicles, education to dealerships, and also incentives for individual car salesmen when they sell an electric vehicle to someone, so that folks can get the information that they need. So we, it's not everything that it could be, but we really do hope that the legislature supports the governor's budget package related to electric vehicles this year. So before we wrap up, we just want to, I think Bob is showing folks again the Rev website. If he scrolls down there, you'll be able to see we have a landing page about the renewable energy standard legislation, And if you click on join the fight, you can quickly, it literally takes 30 seconds or less, send a postcard to your legislators, or you can sign on to the business letter to support the effort. And if you scroll further down on that site, you can get slideshows, fact sheet, and a lot more information. So as always, if you have any questions, you can contact us, checking out our website, revermont.org, checking out Bob's website, which is
bobthegreenguy.com.
And follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or call our office anytime you have a question. If you are looking to what you in your own home or at your business or in your town can do outside of advocating for good climate legislation, we encourage you also to check out our resources on our website, where you can find an installer near you, folks that are providing solar, folks that are providing advanced wood heating, cold climate heat pumps, electric vehicle charging, battery storage, and also information about the incentives and how these renewable technologies can help you save money and save the climate. So thank you all so much for joining us. We are going to record this so that folks that couldn't join us can access it, and you too can access it later as a quick reference. Let's see if we have any final questions.
There's a question about RECs. I think you mentioned that, but it did just pop up a second ago. So it could be that we didn't cover that.
So there was a question about RECs, renewable energy certificates.
Right.
And so Vermont doesn't have Vermont specific renewable energy certificates, but what we do require is that they, in order to, for every utility, they have to certify by a third party that the electricity that they are providing will be renewable. And that is done through a regional system called NEPOOL. And we believe it's very important for all RECs to be tracked and for all utilities and to be transparent with customers about where their electricity comes from, how much of it is renewable. Unfortunately, we know right now that the large majority of our electricity is coming, as I said, more than 60% from out of the state. And we need to make sure that we are no longer subsidizing fossil fuels in New England. And the best way to do that is to grow our local economy with local renewables. So as you're talking with your legislators about the renewable energy standard, I encourage you to prioritize speaking about the benefits of local renewables. Perhaps share your own story about how you've gone solar or installed small wind thanks to net metering. Or if you work in the solar or renewable energy trades, share your story about your job and all the customers that you've helped. So if you have any other questions, feel free to contact us. And otherwise, we hope everyone has a great Monday. Rev on and rev it up for the climate, and talk to your legislators about these bills when you see them at town meeting week, because the communications that you have with them are what make sure that we pass strong legislation here in Montpelier when they come back to the State House.
That's all for now, I think.
All right. Thanks so much, Bob, for joining us. Everyone have a great day.